The Dance of Dragons, a true telling by Grandmaster Munkin, being a history of the war of Targaryen succession between the Princess Rhaenyra and Aegon, second of his name, that nearly destroyed the realm.
The Dance of the Dragons. A stupid name for a Targaryen civil war where my ancestors danced away my birthright. Before the war, House Targaryen counted 18 dragons. By the end, we had 2, and nearly as few Targaryens. We would never be as powerful or as feared again. The dance began, as many dances do, with an old man and a young girl. The queen had failed to produce a son for her king, so he anointed his daughter, the Princess Rhaenyra, as his heir. But years later, the king remarried, and his new wife, Queen Alicent of House Hightower, gave him a son. One night, a servant found the old king had died in his sleep, and ran to inform Queen Alicent. At the hour of the owl, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Criston Cole, summoned the small council to inform them of the king's death. Sir Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King and father to Queen Alicent, demanded that the succession be settled immediately. But Sir Criston Cole rightly pointed out that a son comes before a daughter. The council argued until dawn, when the Master of Coin finally stood up and declared he would have no part of treason. Sir Criston Cole, wisely, opened his throat with a dagger, ending the debate. Aegon relented. He was crowned in the dragon pit, and his wife and sister Helena became queen. His brother Aemond flew off to win over the few great lords whose support Aegon didn't already have. The banner of the gold dragon flew over King's Landing and the Red Keep as Aegon, second of his name, ascended the Iron Throne. He would not sit it long. When ravens carried the news of Aegon's coronation to Dragonstone, Princess Rhaenyra summoned her own Black Council. With her was her uncle and husband, Daemon Targaryen, considered by many to be the most dangerous man in Westeros. Few lords supported her, but the greatest of these was Corlys Velaryon, who controlled the largest fleet in the realm, and his Targaryen wife, Rhaenys, the old king's sister. Combined, they couldn't match the power of House Hightower alone. But Rhaenyra had dragons.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my new Game of Thrones House of the Dragon prequel series video. There's a bit of a teaser here for the Dance of the Dragons because that's the events that they'll cover on the prequel series, and they just cast their first big main lead actor, King Viserys I, so I'll explain what's going on with him and why he's so important. But if you're new to the channel, of course I'll be doing videos for House of the Dragon when it does premiere in 2022. They're targeting a spring 2022 premiere date. They're going to be filming next year. I'll explain that during the video too. I'll number these as we go along just to stay organized, but obviously, first big thing, the Dance of the Dragons teaser trailer is narrated by Harry Lloyd, who played Daenerys' brother Viserys on Game of Thrones, the main series. This is obviously relevant because the first main cast member that they cast for the Dance of the Dragons TV show House of the Dragon is Viserys I Targaryen, Paddy Considine from Hot Fuzz, The Outsider, also an HBO show, a bunch of other stuff. Most of you will probably recognize him from somewhere.
Hello, my name's Paddy Considine and this is eShed.net. Do it right.
Daenerys' older brother, Viserys, was actually Viserys III, named after his ancestors. Both of the previous Targaryens in their family to bear the name Viserys were key people in the Targaryen Civil War, the Dance of the Dragons. Viserys himself had a very contentious relationship with his sister Daenerys towards the end of his life, so you can call it careful foreshadowing from George R. R. Martin in the way that he gives similar characters from history the same names, repeating certain events, or making it seem like events are repeating themselves. The really important things about Viserys I, talking in a larger context to a history of A Song of Ice and Fire and the history of Westeros, is that he was the last Targaryen king to ride Balerion the Black Dread. We didn't really get a lot of Balerion the Black Dread till the very ending once Drogon had grown to his size and they wanted to draw a parallel between him and the classic Balerion the Black Dread dragon. Balerion himself lived to be over 200 years old. He just kept growing bigger and bigger and bigger. That's the way the dragons work within the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, is they keep eating, they'll just continue to grow. So if Daenerys' dragons survive, like if Drogon continues to survive after her death, he'll just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Viserys I reigned for about 26 years. He didn't really die of old age, so to speak, depending on how you look at it. He was only about 49 when he died, but the way they portray his death preceding the Dance of the Dragons' actual civil war breaking out is that he died in his sleep of seemingly natural causes. So it wasn't quite as contentious to say like Ned Stark's death or a lot of the other deaths in Game of Thrones. but it's written that Viserys I reigned over the most prosperous era in the history of the Seven Kingdoms, but seeding within it the disastrous decline of his house, the Targaryen family, in the death of the last dragons. It's not like all those things happened right after he died because of the Dance of the Dragons. It's just that that was basically the beginning of the end of the Targaryen family, the beginning of their decline. This is the official character description that HBO gave when they announced that they cast him for the show. So it says, King Viserys Targaryen is chosen by the Lords of Westeros to succeed the old King Jaehaerys Targaryen at the Great Council at Harrenhal. A warm, kind, and decent man, Viserys only wishes to carry forward his grandfather's legacy, but good men do not necessarily make for great kings. So even if you haven't read the books, you all remember what happened to people like Ned Stark during the main show on Game of Thrones. Good people do not end well in the world of Game of Thrones. You could also apply that description, the character description, to Robert Baratheon as well. Great man, not a great king. So what this means is that when the show picks up in Season 1, they've already had the Great Council to determine who's going to succeed King Jaehaerys I. He's the grandson of Aegon the Conqueror. When they first announced that they were doing this House of the Dragon Game of Thrones prequel, they were very vague about where it would take place in the timeline. So there was a lot of confusion as to whether or not they would be doing Aegon's Conquest or they'd be doing the Dance of the Dragons. But the reason why they needed to call a Great Council to determine who would be the next king was because he had so many heirs at the time of his death. One of his wives gave him 13 different children, and most of them wound up being women. At this time in history, they still favored male primogeniture. So if a king's next true heir by age is woman in the direct line of succession, the succession would jump over her and favor the next closest, oldest male heir. And before the Great Council had been called, Jaehaerys' son, Prince Aemon of Dragonstone, was the heir. He died, but he only had a daughter, Princess Rhaenys. So what Jaehaerys did is that his next oldest son, Prince Baelon, was appointed the next official heir, pissing off Rhaenys and setting this precedent that would help precipitate some of the events of the Dance of the Dragons later on. After Prince Baelon became the heir, he died within a year after complaining of stomach problems during a hunting trip. That should give you flashbacks to Robert Baratheon. Watch out for that wine that you're drinking. But here's the thing, Baelon himself had a son, so natural line of succession passes to him. That is Viserys I, so the person they just cast. Then within a couple years of that, Jaehaerys I dies of extreme old age and Viserys takes the throne. He's around his mid-20s when he takes the throne, but because the actor that they cast, Paddy Considine, is in his 40s, it sounds like maybe they'll have some sort of time compression or time jumps or some sort of flashbacks to explain all this stuff. Just based on his age alone, even if they are aging the character up, it's assumed that he's been on the throne for a good long while. HBO hasn't fully revealed how many seasons of this new show that they plan on doing. Hopefully they make it to 10 seasons, that'd be wonderful. There's more than enough material to take them to 10 seasons. But the main part of the official Dance of the Dragons conflict itself only took place over the period of about 2 years. So it sounds like they're either going to stretch that out a lot, or we'll get a lot of the events before the actual Civil War. Then in the middle seasons, the actual Civil War itself will break out and cover the remaining seasons of the show, however many future seasons it goes to. So early prediction, they're going to use Viserys I as one of their Ned Stark-like characters, someone who's just too good for this world, too good to be a king, but unless they really want to pull the taffy on the timeline of the actual Dance of the Dragons conflict, they'll probably wait till maybe like the second or third season to wind up killing him. Remember, Season 3, Episode 9 of Game of Thrones was the Red Wedding, so you have to think about the way they plot out the most WTF possible moments from the Dance of the Dragons conflict between the seasons. The actual Dance of the Dragons started because of a gradual falling out between Viserys I's only surviving heir from his first wife, Princess Rhaenyra, and her main rival, her mother-in-law, Viserys I's second wife, Queen Alicent Hightower. If you want to read the story, they actually cover a lot of it during the short stories, during the Fire and Blood book that George R. R. Martin released a little while ago, chronicling the history of the Targaryen family. During this period, there were many dragon riders, many dragons in Westeros. The Targaryen family was almost at the height of its power in Westeros, so that's why there were so many dragons around. But the reason why the different factions were called the Blacks and the Greens, even though there were many different colors of dragons, is because several years after Viserys I took the throne, he held a great tourney at King's Landing to commemorate the 5th anniversary of his marriage to his second wife, Alicent Hightower. During the opening feast, Queen Alicent wore a green gown while Princess Rhaenyra, his daughter from his first wife, wore a black gown. So the nobles of the court just wanted to drum up a bunch of tension, just started referring to them that way, the blacks and the greens. The houses of Westeros that favored Princess Rhaenyra and the houses of Westeros that favored Queen Alicent. Even though the queen and the princess became bitter rivals and erupted into this big civil war in Westeros, they didn't always hate each other. What happened is that Alicent came to court when she was about 15 years old. Eventually, Rhaenyra was born, so they grew up knowing each other. Everything was fine, but things started to deteriorate once Queen Alicent had her first son by King Viserys. So that basically meant that the line of succession would eventually jump over Rhaenyra to her son by Viserys. The reason why Princess Rhaenyra was so pissed off about this situation is because her entire life, from the time before Viserys became king and even after he became king until his first wife died, he had been grooming Rhaenyra. He had formally named her his heir, so the realm was recognizing her as the true heir to the throne. But then he gets remarried and has another son with his second wife. And so because of earlier precedents that had been set, the line of succession jumped to that new son. Things get even more salacious too, because that son that Queen Alicent winds up having, who becomes the new heir, they name him Aegon II after Aegon the Conqueror, like, oh, he's going to become this great leader now. Rhaenyra, who's really pissed off about this situation, winds up getting remarried after her first husband dies. The person that she remarries is actually King Viserys' younger brother, Prince Daemon, so she winds up remarrying to her uncle. They have a child and also name him Aegon. So now you have two potential heirs in contention with half the realm favoring one heir over the other. The situation spirals out of control in the best possible way and blows up in all the characters' faces. So there's way less material for them to adapt, but George R. R. Martin himself is actually helping them adapt the series. So it sounds like he's actually much more involved in the making of the series than he was during the original Game of Thrones series, so that should make everybody feel a little bit better. And the people that are actually responsible for making the series are basically some of the best people from the original series. So Dan and Dave don't have anything to do with this. Don't worry about that. It's not like they're coming to do this next series. It's mostly coming from Miguel Sapochnik, George R. R. Martin, and Ryan Condal. So Miguel Sapochnik, you obviously will know, directed most of the best episodes of Game of Thrones, the biggest, best episodes. But like I said, it doesn't sound like it's going to premiere till spring 2022. They will be doing 10 episodes per season. It does sound like the episodes will be longer like the later seasons of Game of Thrones, but also I think they do hope to correct some of the mistakes from the original series, especially in the later seasons with the way that they plotted things out. But if you have any big questions or any big requests for House of the Dragon Game of Thrones videos, just leave them in the comments below. While you wait for everything, click here for all my Game of Thrones deleted scene videos. There's a whole bunch of stuff here, and click here for that brand new trailer for The Boys Season 2 Episode 8 finale. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.